Hey guys, Lauren here. Welcome to the third episode of Griefed. Cheers.
You started playing League professionally in 2014 when you were 22, which is a bit older than a lot of the other people who were starting out in League at the time. Was there anything that you were doing in your life at the time that you had to give up to start League?
Not really. It all kind of fell into place for me. I had finished, well, I was actually kind of finishing uni at the same time as starting League. So I got invited to my first tournament. I can't remember what month it was in, but I think it was in the autumn.
Yeah.
So it would have been like May, I guess. But the qualifiers for that was beforehand, and I was just finishing my degree. So like I had done all my subjects the year before.
What were you
So I was
studying?
doing the last part, health science.
Yeah.
And I majored in public health, and I was doing my placement at the end of my degree, and I had to do my placement before I qualified. And I was working I was doing my placement full time in like a regional health centre, which was like really far away from my house. And we had to play these qualifiers to qualify for this tournament. And so like my internet was shit house, right? So like it was always a problem, but like I had patched my TR, Tournament Realm, like the client, the night before, because I knew like I had to get up at 6 and I had to drive all the way, I'm not gonna say where it was, but really far away. It was like a 2-hour drive to get to the health centre. And then I was gonna have to do the whole day at the health centre and drive home and play this game at like 7, right? There was no time at all. Anyway, so they had released a patch at like lunchtime. They didn't say anything, they didn't tell us. It was just like, I got like a message. I got home and I got a message and I was like, we patched it like this time, like you need to be ready. And I was like, I can't be fucking be ready. It's gonna take me like 3 hours to download this patch, whatever. So I got subbed out and
For your first tournament?
my first ever tournament, yeah, actually had to get subbed out because I was doing placement for uni.
Yeah.
And Juice played for me. And that's the sort of how I met Juice. And that was like sort of the beginning of our relationship, and he ended up subbing for us for a little bit longer after that.
Was that on Avant? Or the team before that?
We were on Avant by then.
Yeah.
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 So the team before that, I was on Mind Freak for like a month. So we
Yes.
joined Mind Freak, but they were already kind of dead.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, at that time.
At the time, yeah.
More or less. And so like we were there, but we didn't sign any contracts. It was just a name.
Yeah.
And then very shortly afterwards we joined AV. So that was like weeks. So I usually just leave that out.
And how long was that before it actually became like a legitimate thing that you were like, okay, fuck work, fuck uni, whatever, like I'm full-time esports?
Well, I graduated uni, so like I didn't have to say fuck uni.
Yeah.
That just worked out the timing. I quit work in 2015.
Okay,
So
while
that
you
was-
were playing.
Yeah, so I played that full year. I worked and I did uni, and then I worked and played. I didn't see it as like a career.
Yeah.
It was just like fun for the time being. I hadn't done like a gap year or anything like that. I went straight out of high school to uni. So like for me, that was sort of like my gap year. I mean, I was still working, but I was like, I'll just do this thing for a little bit. I knew I didn't really want to work in public health anyway, so I was like, I'll just do this thing for a little bit and we'll see what happens. And then the next year was when they started like the Pro League, the OPL.
Yeah.
And so then it was like, oh, there's going to be like some salary or some match fees. We could earn a little bit of money every week. So I was like, oh, I can work a little bit less.
Yeah.
And then by the end of 2015, Legacy was sort of growing a little bit, and with some help from Riot, we moved. All the leagues were moving to Sydney. Well, actually, that happened the year after. Anyway, sorry, I get my time mixed up a long time ago now.
Yeah.
But we moved to in 2016, we moved to Sydney to open our first gaming house. We paid for that ourselves. All the boys basically just like almost like a share house, but like business paid some, but like we were making so little money
Yes.
as an org back then. Everyone was winning prize money, putting it straight back into the house.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I quit work at the end of 2015.
Hold on. What is that noise?
That's the ice machine, I think.
Lucky. How long did it take until it actually started to feel like this is a career path you could actually follow?
I don't know. It took a long time, actually. I never really thought of it as a real job. I thought every year was going to be the last year. I just thought this can't be real. It's too good to be true. and it has to fail. Basically, is what I. And I didn't mean the whole industry. I just like meant like my role in it. Yeah, like it couldn't be this good really. I would say when I sold Legacy the first time to Crows, that's when it really changed over. We got a bit of money. I got employed obviously by them. Legitimacy. That's when it really started feeling like a career.
Was your family behind it when you were playing?
Yeah. I mean, they were they were not supportive until they were, which is like a weird thing to say, right?
No, my family was the same.
Yeah, they were like not about it at all until like I started doing stuff. Like my dad would always give me shit. He'd always like come, he'd be like, "What are you still doing that for? Go get a life, like get out there, go do something, rah, or like whatever." But I actually funny, like I remember my first ever tournament. So I got invited to qualify to play in the Gold Coast, right?
Yeah.
And it was like they were going to cover all our flights. We get put up in a hotel, rah, play this tournament. Yeah, and I had to tell my mom, it's actually funny. Actually, I didn't know how to tell my girlfriend either at the time that I was doing this thing. And I literally told her like the night before, and I was like, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to Gold Coast tomorrow." And she was like,
"To play League of Legends."
Yeah, she was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" She didn't even know I played League like professionally, nothing like that. I just couldn't like figure out how to bring it up, and then it got to a point where it was just too late to not say anything. I was like, "Oh yeah." She's like, "What are you doing this weekend?" I was like, I'm going to Queensland. I'm going to play on stage. All these people are going to be like screaming and stuff. It's not a big deal, but like that's what I'll be doing.
Supernova, right?
Supernova, yeah. That's Supernova. But my mum was like, "Tim, that's not real. That doesn't happen. Like people don't just fly you to Queensland to play video games. Like that's not real." No, she was like, she full thought I was going to get like Chappelle Corby. She was like, "Are you smuggling drugs? Like check your bag." Like what? Like she did not trust it at all. No, there was nothing in my bag.
Such a funny take I haven't thought of like the parents being like, "Hold on, like is this a scam?"
No,
these people are on the internet trying to get your details.
No, that was literally it. My mum just didn't believe it. She was like, "That can't be right. You're getting scammed. You're an idiot. You're an idiot who would get scammed. So you need to double check everything." But of course, like it was fine. But once I played my first couple things, and I was pretty fortunate because I had success early on. Once I like came home, and I was like, I had been to Gold Coast, and I went to Sydney, then I went to Perth, and then like we won. We were going to Germany and stuff, and then I was like, there's something happening here.
It's legitimate.
There's something happening here, and from then on, it was like they were like my number one fans. So I've been really lucky in that regard. Yeah.
That's so good.
They've been really good.
I would love if you could take us through the Legacy story from start to finish. So from like disbanding from Avant-Garde Ascension and becoming Legacy, selling to the Adelaide Crows, and then now being bought out by another team.
I mean, it's a long story. Legacy.
Was Legacy your baby?
Yes and no. Yes, it was my baby, but I wasn't the only person who started it. So I'm always like, I never want to say like, I'm the guy, because definitely wouldn't have happened with the people who would have involved at the start. But certainly, I mean, it sort of started, I sort of became leader by default. So it started in 2014, which is 8 years ago now, but I was at Legacy for about 7 years, most of my young adult life. And we started as a team. We left AV. We had been promised a laptop. We had been so we were playing a LAN in Perth. We didn't have any computers. We weren't going to have computers when we got there. This was a time when that kind of stuff wasn't just provided for you, in OS at least. And we were going to be given this laptop to help us VOD review before the games or whatever, right? And this laptop somehow found its way into the wife of the owner's hands and like was not coming to us anymore. And
2014 Australian esports.
Yeah, and we just flipped it. I especially me and eGym at the time just completely flipped out, and we were like, nah, there's no way. I had actually specifically not signed my contract like I had like delayed the entire time. I was like, there's
Yeah.
no way I'm signing this.
Yeah.
Like I get nothing and you get all my rights. Like, I'm like, fuck off. And
That's what all the fucking contracts at the time were. Was literally like sign up for 3 years and do
Yeah,
and we will
yeah.
give you nothing and no pay.
yeah, I don't know. People just didn't read them, or like they were just like, oh, whatever, who cares? It doesn't
this
mean
is the
anything
big
anyway.
opportunity. This is
yeah.
esports. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, but and I don't know if it was because I was older or because I had been to uni or whatever, but I was like, I'm gonna read this, and I read it, and I was like, this is horse shit. I was like, I'm not a lawyer. I have no legal experience, but I was like, just the words in this don't make sense. Like, I
Yeah.
don't. Anyway, but so we were supposed to get this fucking laptop, and we were like, where's the laptop? He's like, promising. I was like, yeah, laptop. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. Like, we're gonna be able to prepare. Last time we couldn't prepare. Rah rah rah. Anyway, we get there. It's like, oh yeah, no, I couldn't do it. Like, wife's using the laptop. Like, it's really important. Like, whatever.
I've got some shit to do.
Yeah, I was
It's
like,
so
oh
weak.
yeah. Like for this one weekend, she's like, gotta do my online shopping. Like, can't miss. Amazon's got a fucking sale on. Like, I'm trying to qualify this anyway. So, so it didn't show up, and we had exercised. And me and Ejim was so angry, and I was like, we are not staying here. No matter what happens, we're not staying here.
Mm-hmm.
And just so happened that we ended up winning. And they were so disappointed when I was like, because we
See ya.
won under their name and then left under our own.
Yes.
And yeah, they were very upset when I was like, nah.
Yeah, but
like I'm
good on
doing
you.
my own thing, man. Like this is not. And it's funny because it's such a small thing, like this laptop thing, but it was seriously, at the time, it was everything.
It sets the precedent for what's
I
going
was-
to happen in the future if you stick by them.
Yeah, but even then, like, you know what I mean? It would have just been like, oh, they didn't send me my keyboard. You know what I mean? It would have just been
No.
another small
Yeah,
piss
yeah,
thing
yeah.
that they wouldn't have done. But it was like, at the time, it was just like, it was just too much.
Fuck this. We're going to do our own shit.
So we
Yeah.
started our own thing,
Yeah.
and I thought at the time, well, the fair thing is let's all take a stake in it, whatever.
Yeah.
So we were 5 original shareholders, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's how it started.
That was like Minky, that was Choo Choo's, that was Ejim,
Yeah,
and
and Cardred.
And Cardred,
yeah, who's not been playing for a long time already.
No.
Most of you probably don't remember that name, but those 5 guys, and we were also like the best of friends. Like
Yeah.
we were just so close,
Yeah.
and
You guys had an
also
esports team
won
together.
Yeah, and we also won together. So it was really like if you had made a movie, we were like the
Yeah.
we were the
Yes.
feel good ending. You know what I mean? Like we were the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
And at the time, but that's how it started. So we all were sort of shareholders, whatever, and we started together. But as things got more serious, the others were more interested in like playing and like what that entailed, and it just sort of fell to someone to organise or to do paperwork or to whatever. And just because I was the oldest, I had, I guess, a tiny bit more experience than the others. I'd be like, I just put my hand up and I'd be like, oh,
Yeah,
I'll
took
take
the
care of
role.
that. I'll take care of that. I'll take care of that. And you kind of just do that enough times, and you end up with all the information,
Yes.
and people are just coming
Come
to you for things.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of how it happened. And over the years, like those guys left to pursue other things, or they got dropped, or whatever it was. And the riot rules at the time were you couldn't, well, they still are, like you can't own part of a team and play for another team. So it was
Yeah.
basically like if they wanted to play anywhere else, they had to give up their stake.
Yeah.
And over time, it just kind of got consolidated. But I would say, like, I mean, I was obviously the longest, and yeah, like I said, I liked it. It was my baby, but
Yeah.
there were a lot of other people involved over the years.
How did the deal with Adelaide Crows come about? Like, did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? Like, what was that whole story?
Yeah, we still had a period in 2016, at the end of 2016, where we thought about taking investment on. So like I said earlier, in 2016, we sort of started a gaming house on our own terms. We just decided we want to do that.
Yeah.
And everyone just sort of made it happen together.
Yeah.
That was a really tough time.
Yeah.
And at the end of that year, I had sort of thought, and in discussion with others, like, it'd be really great to get some money in to do some extra cool things.
Yeah.
And we spoke to a lot of investors at the time, a lot of different groups, a lot of interesting people. But the Crows were one of those groups. They had come to us, and the funny thing for me was, like, because I was born in Adelaide, and I had been a Crows fan all my life.
Yeah.
So it was very cool meeting them.
Yeah.
And they just really believed in the vision, and they were really keen to get involved. And yeah, of the people I had spoken to, that they, like, a bias aside, like, they were the most, I don't know, they had done the most research, you know, like they knew what they were getting into. Because that's the other
Yeah.
thing with esports, like, a lot of people out there like kicking tires. They just want to know what it's about, they hear
Put
the
some money
hype.
in,
They want
get
to
a
chuck,
part of it.
chuck a little bit of money in, say that they're in esports, whatever. But these
Yeah.
guys had done their research. They sort of knew how the scene worked and
Yeah.
like different games and stuff like that. So that's what made them a good choice for me.
And then you
And-
became head of esports at the
Yeah,
Adelaide Crows.
so I had been running the club and playing prior to that.
Yeah.
But I knew, like, every year it got busier. There was more work to do for the org.
Yeah.
And I knew I couldn't sustain it. Like 2016 for me personally was extremely difficult.
Yeah.
I was running the org, I was running the gaming house, and I was playing at the same time. Trying to win, trying to be the best, not like just like playing for fun.
Yeah.
And I was just totally burnt by the end of the year. I was just completely cooked, and I knew I couldn't do that anymore. So 2017, I played one more year because I wasn't able to. I was going to lose. We were going to lose a lot of our good players if I didn't play, basically. And I thought, well, if we do poorly, that's going to be more difficult to sell. So I was like, well, I'll play one more year as I transition out. And then, so when I sold and I retired, I had been running the club already, but now I didn't have to play anymore.
Yeah.
So I just had a lot
You
more
could
time
focus.
to do that. Yeah. So I was head of esports, which I mean more or less boiled down to like operations and you sort of help with everything, especially the Crows because they were all football people, so they didn't know that much about esports.
You almost
so
have to like intro them to
yeah,
esports.
yeah, and it's like a weird dynamic because like they're experts in like marketing or like they're experts in finance or whatever it is. Like like 40, like they've got 20 years experience. They're working at like one of the top sporting clubs in the country.
Yeah.
But they don't know anything about this thing. So it's like there was a lot of education of people who were smarter than I was.
Yeah.
But it
Did
was
you
really
have
good.
to do a lot of like proving like why money needs to be spent on this?
Yes and no. Like yes, but more education, not really like
Yeah,
justifying.
okay. Yeah,
It was
okay.
like no, like this is expensive. We have to have because why? And not like you need to spend money on us because we deserve it or like whatever.
Yeah.
Because the thing for me was like they had bought us, right? Like it wasn't like they didn't want us or like they didn't. Like, you know what I mean? Like
They were making the decision to
yeah,
invest.
like we didn't owe them. Like they weren't. Yeah, we didn't owe them anything in that regard. Like owe them a successful business, I guess. But like they had bought it, they had shown interest, they had paid me money to take it off my hands.
Yeah.
Like they obviously wanted to do something with it.
So
So
now
like,
they got to listen when you're
Yeah.
like, we need.
Yeah, well,
this.
it's like-
yeah.
yeah, like it's not. It wasn't like I had to beg for money because it was like, well, it's your thing.
Yeah.
Like if you want to spend money on it, that's up to you. What, like I don't know, whatever. Like
Yeah.
I'm getting paid either way. You know what I mean? I'm still gonna give you my best
It would
advice.
be sick if we could do this.
Yeah,
but if
yeah,
not,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of it was, like presenting stuff, being like,
Yeah.
I think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
And they trusted me more or less. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I mean, one of the key challenges with the Crows was we were tasked with building a sustainable business from the start. And not like a lot of investments in esports, you see like a bunch of money get dumped.
Yeah.
They do a bunch of cool shit and they disappear.
For a year and then it's gone.
and they
Yeah.
disappear. And that wasn't with us. With us, they said like, no, like this needs to pay for itself as soon as possible.
Cool.
And we worked within those parameters basically. So we never had the big flash like explosion, I guess, that some of the other clubs or some of the other investors had in the space. But at the same time, we lasted a lot longer, I think, than most, and that was for that reason. But that's the only thing that sort of made it a challenge because, like, as I'm sure, well, probably not that many people know, but some people definitely know, running a sustainable business in esports is pretty difficult,
Especially in Australia.
especially in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Australian esports, and also you mentioned EGYM before, I would love to talk about just the Chiefs legacy rivalry that was the like almost the stable of Oceanic esports for a while, the El Clasico.
Yeah, yeah.
And you mentioned like EGYM was on legacy and then
Yeah.
moved over to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
How was that being this? I know you were friends with people who were on Chiefs, but then also you had this rivalry. Like, what can you just tell me about all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird one. Because we were friends first.
Yeah.
So like we were friends first.
You
and
were like
then,
the only 10 people who were at the top of League of Legends esports in Australia, right? So you had
Yeah.
stuff in common, but then also you were competitors.
Yeah, you're direct competitors. It's like they're the only people who really understand what you're going through, but you also
Yes.
can't talk to them.
Yeah.
So it's like a weird, it's a
'Cause
weird
if
relationship.
they beat you
Yeah.
this weekend, then you don't get to go overseas and make all that money and that fame.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
they're also the only people who know what it's like, who knew at the time at least, what it was like to like
Yes.
miss out on that, or like
Yeah.
to succeed and get it. So
Yes.
like, yeah, that definitely made it weird. But like, yeah, I mean the relationship, like we started being friends, and then we beat them a few times, and then I mean we were still kind of friends then. But yeah, E-Gym leaving and joining Thingo definitely is what started that rivalry. Like originally it was just they were the best team and we wanted to be the best, but there was nothing else really there. Like we were mostly friends. We would hang out and stuff. But yeah, E-Gym leaving and joining them is really what kicked it off. And it was not just that, it was also like the circumstances around it. Like for me, from my perspective, what had happened, why I got so upset at the time and really what kicked off the rivalry.
When E-Gym left?
Yeah. But like I said, it wasn't just his leaving.
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
obviously a big part of it.
Combination
but like,
of everything.
Yeah, but it was like a few days earlier, or like a week earlier, Simon Swiffer had come to me to talk about leaving his team
Yes.
and joining ours.
I remember.
And because he was not happy at the time, and I don't know if he wants me to tell a story, but he was not happy at the time, basically, and we had just beaten them at the last two tournaments before that, and we stayed up until like 5 a.m. He had just come to me randomly one day in the afternoon, whatever, and we talked like 12 hours. We talked until like 5 a.m. in the morning on just like a Thursday night or something. And ultimately I had told him like, no man, like it sounds like you need to figure out, like it sounds like what's important to you is your relationship with these people, and like you need to figure that out. So like I think for you this is probably not the best idea, and like we had, you know what I mean? Like I spent all this time, and ultimately it was like felt like I had the opportunity to just like completely ruin what they had going on,
but you
and
decided
just
not
absorb
to.
this. And I was like, no, like I felt like we had to come to like what was best for him, and I was happy for him, and he sounded happy, so like that was good because we were friends, and like I enjoyed that. But then like it had turned out that at the same time he had been talking to E-Gym like the entire time without saying anything to me, and that definitely hurt. That was like a big. I've definitely felt betrayed, I guess, by that. And then E-Gym left, and they hadn't told their support at the the they hadn't told Rosie that he was getting replaced yet before I knew. So I just went public with it straight away. I just fucking I just dropped the tactical nuke.
So Rosie found out from you. I knew that they had done it without him knowing, but I didn't realize that you knew.
So I just dropped the tactical nuke, and he flipped out, and
he should.
Of course. And started all this drama, and then like our sponsors at the time had no idea what was going on, and like we were just kicking it off, and they came out and they're like, "What are you doing? Like, what is all this? What is all this shit?"
Yeah.
And then that's how it started. It just went off from there, and like I had accused them of poaching because I was, as a team owner, was not approached, and like that was against the rules. But then like they got off, chief bias, of course. And
chief bias. True though, true.
So like that was kind of all that shit had happened at the same time, and that was really what kicked it off. And so I was really like, no, fuck those guys. Like Simon's a piece of shit.
I was about to say, did you fucking hate Simon at the time?
Yeah, like it's kind of. It's hard. No, because it's hard to hate Simon. That's the thing. He's so charismatic.
I know.
He's such a nice guy.
I know. He could tell you the worst news and then be like, but I love you though. And you'd be like,
that's
all
right.
That's all right. That was nice of Simon to make me feel so included.
So I did. But, and then it just developed because it was like once that had sort of kicked it off. And then from then it was like, 2 more years of like constantly meeting these guys in finals. And then like each event had its own little thing. Like
always.
One time Spooks had like shit talked one of our guys like after they beat us, and I was like, "You're such a piece of shit, dude! Like, how dare you do that? That is so unsportsmanlike. Like, fuck you, rah rah." And he was like he was like, no, like I was joking. I thought he played really well. I was trying to like, you know what I mean? It was just like shit like that all the time. Where like I was just so ready to take offense. I already hated them. But like.
You're like, you just beat us and now you're fucking talking shit. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And then like we also like in a lot of those finals got very like I personally got, not the team, but I personally got very unlucky, and You know, we had 2 grand finals in a row with a player band.
Yeah.
One of them being support. It was like very good. We had off-roll support in one of the finals.
Yeah.
In the very next final, our best player, King, who's now of course playing at Cloud9,
Yeah.
got banned. We lost that final 3-2. Like we lost the first final 3-1 with an off-roll support.
Yeah.
The next final we lost 3-2
3-2.
without
Yeah.
our best player, and it was just like that. Like people
Just
didn't
infuriating.
care. People didn't care that you had a sub. Like you just
Yes,
lost. You were just
yeah.
trash. And
Yes.
like that just everything just added fuel to the fire, you know what I mean? And like, yeah, without like a lot of stuff happened over that period, but that was more or less it. Like, it was just like the big thing at the start, and then just like little shit here and
Yeah.
there, and the drama around the finals and the subs. So we kept getting so close and just couldn't do it. We're just so unlucky.
And then it also just kept becoming like a narrative that was like pushed in like LOL esports as a whole, or like the casters. It was like, yeah, Chiefs versus Legacy, and you're like, even if like, yeah, I was a bit pissed off at them last week, but I don't mind. And then they're like, no, Chiefs versus Legacy. You're like, okay, I guess I hate the Chiefs. Like, I guess I'm doubting the Chiefs.
Well, it did get to a stage where like it became like a sort of parody of itself. Of I think definitely the most iconic Chief hate video from me. Like that was all acting,
Yes.
more or less.
Yeah.
Like I hated them, but the same way you hate like a sports team,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Collingwood,
yeah.
or like,
You're like, oh, fuck the Chiefs,
yeah, like fuck those
I'm
guys.
Legacy.
Yeah. But not like it was definitely not that same.
Genuine.
Those feelings weren't there anymore. No,
Yeah.
and that had already been for a while. Like,
Yeah.
because like I said, you get to a stage where like these are really the only guys who understand you. There's only 2 of
Yeah.
us who know what it's like to play at one of these big tournaments on stage.
Yeah.
And it's like, who else do you talk to about that? So like you kind of inevitably end up talking to those guys.
Yeah.
Or we did. And yeah, I mean, the rivalry kept on, and it's fun to take part in.
Yeah,
but-
especially when they become your friends, it's almost like fun to rib them.
Yeah.
a bit,
I used to do this thing where whenever they walked in the room, I'd start sniffing like someone had farted.
What is it? Stinky Chiefs, right?
I'd just say, like, I'd just be like, do you want to smell that?
Yeah.
It smells like cheese in here. Just like walk up slowly
Yes.
behind him, like, oh.
Fucking stinky.
Just like, I can't remember, there was like a 6-month
Yeah.
period anywhere they showed up. And then like all the rest of my team started doing it. It was so funny. But I was just shit like that all the
Yeah.
time, you know what I mean?
So obviously, when you bring together a bunch of young men who've never lived out of a house before, things happen. People are messy. People order a lot of Uber Eats. And I remember a time where you came home one day, we used to live together, and we lived around the corner from the Legacy house, and you came home and you were fucking pissed. And I asked you, what happened? What's got you so upset? And you told me a story about some maggots.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, I managed gaming houses for like 5 or so years, and we had a lot of different plays, a lot of different games. Like, we had a lot of stuff happen in all of them. We had a few, and one time we had a team staying in there that didn't usually stay in there, so like they weren't totally down with like how everything worked.
Yeah, they were there for like scrims before an event or something like that. Boot
Yeah,
camp?
I think they were boot camping.
Boot camp.
Yeah, they were boot camping, and like, I mean, we sort of had a protocol when someone came in the house. We had a bunch of things we would run through. We had like sheets up all around the house. Like we had like laminated, like kind of like noob tips for like living as a person. That we had like laminated and stuck up around the house of like, you know, wash your dishes, put them then here, or like,
Yeah.
please don't eat in this room, or like if you put it in this bin, like
Yeah.
this is bin day, these are the chores, whatnot. And I had sort of briefed these players when they came in, you know, make sure you put the bins out on this day, whatever. So they stayed there, I think, about a month or so. Anyway, so I went around one day. I mean, I checked up regularly, but one time I checked up and like all the bins in the house were full. And I thought like, oh, you know, it's a bit annoying or whatever. Like, I don't really want to do it, but fine. Like, you know,
I'm the adult. I'll
these
take the
kids,
bins
yeah,
out.
and then
Whatever.
they're from here. They don't live in the house normally. Like, I'll be. So I thought, oh, you know, I'll do you a favour. I'll throw the bins out for you. Anyway, so I took the first bin out to the red bin, and the red bin had just been full. Like, it had just been filled and like forgotten about. Like, they just never took it out. Whatever. I don't know how long it had been. Like, my guess is probably like a month. Like, they were there for a month, and like my assumption is they just never put it out. And I opened the lid, and it was just writhing. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen rubbish move.
Yes.
But like it's not supposed to. Yeah, rubbish generally is
Especially not in
it's
like your
not
small
alive.
red bin
No,
that
it's
you
like
pull out
inanimate
to the
rubbish normally. And the rubbish was just vibrating in the fucking bin because there was just maggots to the fucking top of this bin, just in the worst way possible. And there's something about the smell of maggots that is just
fucking disgusting.
wrong on a level that is like really core to being a person.
Guttural.
Like, yeah, there's something really, like, there's something the human or like the mammal, reptile,
Yeah.
the monkey brain doesn't
Yes.
like about maggots.
Yes.
And
Maggot equals rock equals sick
death.
equals
Yeah,
death.
you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And it stuck with me for ages. I smelled maggots everywhere
Yes,
around. I mean,
I
I ended up, I fucking, well, first of all, I threw one of those like insect bombs in there, closed the lid, waited till the bins came back, made sure that the bin got picked up. Those poor bin guys, because they fucking emptied the maggot bin into their bin. Shouts out to you guys, you're doing God's work.
Emptying the game of maggots.
Yeah. But then, of course, it was still full of maggots at the bottom. Like,
Yeah.
it had perforated the entire bin. So it was still heaps of maggots in there. Just now they were all fucking squirming on the bottom.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. For me, like, as a small business owner, esports person, like, my first move is always to do it myself.
Yeah.
Like, save money, do it yourself.
Yep.
Like, save money, do the plumbing. Save money, clean the fucking maggot bin. So I'm in my hands and knees, I'm scrubbing out the maggot bin. Like, I've sprayed them, I've rinsed it, I'm like with the hose and like just fist deep in maggots, just like in the worst way. And and in the worst way. And it was seriously stuck with me for ages. I couldn't I couldn't get these maggots out of my brain.
I remember you saying everything smells like maggots.
Yeah.
I'm just
It
thinking
did.
of maggots.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
And even to this day, like I was telling the story just before, my mum like just found a dead rat the other day. She's telling me about this dead rat, and now she thinks it was like yesterday, and today she's like, she thought she found another rat. She hadn't.
Like, Mum,
but I was like,
I get you.
I was like, I
Maggots.
understand. I understand. The maggots won't leave. Like, if I smell anything remotely close to the smell of rotting rubbish nowadays, you instantly transported back.
Yeah. It's not even like, oh, that's gross. It's like, oh my God, I'm there. I'm touching the maggots.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's not even like that is only even one thing. And that's just one that you remember because we were living together at the time. But it's like there's a million stories like that.
Yeah.
Like poop stories.
Yeah.
Inappropriate touching.
Yeah.
Fighting. Like physically fighting and having to break up fights. Like just everything and anything. And
But what about like, what are the poop stories? Is this just like, are these people being unhygienic or is this people like leaving shit in the toilet?
So both. I mean, generally,
Right.
unhygienic is just sort of like a baseline level. You just sort of accept that. And even if it wasn't esports, if you're going to have like 7 or 8 guys, young guys, that's just going to happen.
People who've never lived out of home before,
Guys
people
are
are paying
gross.
their rent. Yeah, absolutely.
And we had this one time that, I don't know what happened, but it was like off season. There was a couple of places in the house still, and the toilet had clogged. Mm-hmm. So the toilet had clogged for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. We never got to the bottom of that.
Literally.
And it had regurgitated its contents back into the bowl.
Which was shit.
Mostly poop.
Mostly
some
poop.
urine and like
All
toilet
the things
paper.
you would find in the toilet.
Just normal things you find in toilet paper. No one flushed anything crazy, I don't think. Except monster poops. And
Game of
they
poops.
had-
Living off Uber Eats.
yeah. So it had regurgitated all its poop back into the toilet bowl, right?
Yum.
Yeah, great. And I didn't know because I wasn't living in the house. Like I had moved, as soon as I retired, I moved out of the gaming house and went into my own place because there was no way.
Fuck that.
And they had, I don't know, they had just decided they weren't going to tell me, I guess, or they just thought maybe it would just go back down the toilet or something.
Yeah.
Like they just thought
Maybe this will
poop
just
solves
be fixed
itself.
for me.
Poop solves itself. Well, I don't need to worry about this. Anyway, so like God knows how much time passed. I think maybe 4 or 5 days passes, and and eventually I get the phone call. Tim, there's something wrong with the toilet, and I thought, oh shit, here we go. You know, what's up? Like, what can I help you with? Whatever. Anyway, so I come round, and they're like, it's in there. They would refuse to go in the room, and I thought, well, if you refuse to go in the room,
You think I'm just going
why am I going in the room? But again, you know, esports org, money's tight.
Yeah. You don't want to call the Crows and be
sometimes-
like, well.
Sometimes you got to put your wellies on and get in the bathroom. And
and get fist fucking deep in maggots.
The poop. So what had happened? It had filled back up to the brim. So it had filled back up to the brim of the toilet. But because so much time had passed between them calling me and the event actually occurring, all the liquid had evaporated out of the toilet bowl. So all that was left was like, and the toilet bowl is quite large. Viewers at home, I recommend you go look at the toilet, just double check. And it was evaporated, right? So you have to imagine this is rock hard concoction. This is a potion. This is a potion made of Uber Eats poo. What's left of pee after it evaporates.
5 energy drinks a day. There's no water in their diet.
Oh,
this
no.
is just
just the worst.
This is maggots
rotting on the inside.
for 5 months. Yeah.
And that's just solid. It's just solid. It's just this much solid poop with specks of white of what I guess was toilet paper. And the worst smell, the second worst smell I'd ever smelled, obviously maggots had won. Because the poops didn't last. They didn't stick with me, but the maggots did.
It's only smells.
It's only smell. And that was then my problem. And I thought, well, the other thing is when shit like this occurred, I felt bad. I was like, I can't call a plumber and be like, hey man, you'll never believe what happened to me. So I've just got a toilet full of
someone in this house
rock hard dry poop
that I'm not living in. I swear it was someone else.
I didn't actually do this. So anyway, so I fixed it. I unclogged the toilet. It was horrible, but I got it done, and the toilet worked fine after that.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so just a lot of those kind of that's a lot of that kind of stuff.
A couple of HSPs and cupboards.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can't explain. You know, you just find things in weird places. You just show up
and you're like, oh, this is here now.
Yeah, it's kind of like that was definitely one of the ones that was like less disgusting, but really messed with me mentally. Like that was like, so I cleaned up after these guys had left, and they left stuff everywhere. You know, like apple cores under the bed, or like they had not, you know, they eat shapes of their desk, they leave all the boxes there, or Uber Eats bags, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
you know, they're rubbish, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I thought to myself, well, this time it had been pretty messy, and I was like, well, you know what, like, I'm just going to check everything. I'm just going to open every cupboard, make sure nothing's broken, check under the beds, make sure nothing's been left behind, whatever.
Make sure we're not going to get charged for a bond.
Yeah, basically. Bond check, sort of.
Yeah.
And anyway, one of those cupboards happened to be the linen cupboard. And at first I was like, why am I looking in the linen cupboard? Like I used to keep spare linen in case, usually players brought their own. I kept spare linen just in case they needed. Anyway, so I opened the linen cupboard and there's like one of those polystyrene boxes just like sitting on like a bed of sheets. And I was like,
oh, it was on top of the sheets.
Yeah. It's on top of the sheets. And I was like, what is that? Like, what's that? What's that doing in here? That's kind of weird. Anyway, I opened it and there was like the remnants of like a HSP. And I was like, it wasn't gross or like maggoty or like anything like that.
Thankfully.
But just like, just me recreating in my mind the movie of like this guy eating 3/4 of his HSP, being like, I don't think I really want this anymore. Where can I put it? The fridge? The bin? No, that's too easy. Happened to be walking past the linen cupboard. Thought, those are nice clean sheets.
On top of the linen.
Just dump that right on top of there. Just close this up.
And no one's going to notice,
I just imagine him closing the door, like tapping it.
Yeah,
Good.
done.
Yep, that's nice.
And
that's
who's going to
over.
open that ever?
No one. Who looks in the linen cupboard?
Linen, no.
Who uses sheets? So that was. I definitely thought about that one for a long time. I kept replaying in my mind like how he had like an episode of CSI, like recreating recreating the steps. Like why did he decide to do this?
You've been in Aussie esports for a long time on many different levels. Aussie esports is severely lacking at the moment when it comes to funds, when it comes to players, when it comes to tournaments, when it comes to literally everything. And obviously all of us who've dedicated our adult lives to this industry, we want to see it booming and we want to see it doing well. What do you think we could be doing, or what do you think needs to happen for Oceanic esports to improve, to take the next step?
It's a difficult question. There's a lot of answers.
Yeah.
I think for me, esports, I think there's sort of two parts. I think there are many areas the esports generally could be doing better. I think there's a lot of things that people hyperfixate on that even if they optimize like perfectly, like I'm not going to give them like returns on their effort.
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot where we think like, oh, if we just get the color scheme of this broadcast exactly perfect,
then our retention time would be tenfold.
Yeah, and I think like that stuff counts, right?
Yeah.
It's not nothing, but like when you're talking about increasing viewership,
scope of,
or like increasing the industry by double or triple or however much, you know, that's not the thing, you know. So I feel like that happens a lot. I think one of the other things is I think people need to be willing to work. And I don't mean like work harder on esports. I mean like professional badminton players have a job.
Yep.
You want to play professional volleyball?
Yep.
You're probably not doing that year round. You probably have doing something else on the side, or you have to find some money. You have to find a sponsor. You have to attend. I don't know. You have to like hustle for grants and like, okay, yes, there's not a bunch of government grants available to esports players, but like, there's heaps of sports in this country, in this region, Australia, New Zealand, that are not supported, that are not popular in the way that they are maybe overseas, or maybe not even overseas, or not compared to other major sports. And those people make it work. They still make it work. And I think that people in esports could learn from that, need to be more willing to balance them. If you're not making enough through esports, that's not esports' fault necessarily. It could be, but more likely is there's just not enough money for everyone to get paid the way they want. But if you want to keep working in this thing, you have to do something else to balance it. And a lot of people do that, but I feel like a lot of people don't do that. And I think that's, I don't know, I feel like because esports has such a strong facade of professionalism, because it's a purely digital, not purely, but because it's a mostly digital industry, what you find is a lot of the front page of esports looks incredible. The graphics are amazing. The social media is impeccable. The broadcast is professional. You know, like it's all clean, and people spend so much time on it, and like it all looks amazing. But the reality of it is it's a small growing sport.
Yeah.
You know, the discus community looks ugly. Like not because of how they look, but because it's a small industry. Then they're struggling, and people are not trying to watch discus every weekend.
Yes.
But you can see that very clearly from the outside. But with esports, that's not the case. When you look at esports, you see professional orgs and these amazing broadcasts, and this interviewer who's wearing, is just in this like incredible dress and makeup, and everything is just like, wow, because you are only viewing it through like the smallest lens.
Yeah.
You can only see what they choose to present you. So esports is just majorly indexed on presenting the best version of itself through those mediums, which I think gives a lot of people a false impression that there's like way more money or that it's way more professional than it really is. So I think people need to be more willing to accept that it's small and growing, and part of working in a small and growing industry is that there's not a whole bunch of full-time jobs available, and you may need to do something else while you do it.
And what do you think could help change that, getting more full-time jobs in? Do you think it's purely there needs to be more money, there needs to be more sponsors?
It's not like a choice
non-endemic?
It's not like a choice to be like, we're going to hire more full-time people.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, there's a million different places money can come from. And these are not necessarily OS esports. It's not an answer to your OS esports question, but like for me, obviously the lack of broadcast rights deal, people talk about that a lot. I think one day that might happen. That'll play a big part.
Can
for me,
you go into that a little bit more?
On broadcast rights deal? Well, you look at most sports. And the other thing I should say is that basically every sport on the face of the planet loses money.
Yeah.
Basically all of them. Even you think about the biggest ones, soccer, NBA, there are very few clubs that actually turn a profit. Most of them are losing a lot of money every year. And so it will probably never be profitable, but it'll be more sustainable.
Yeah.
But a media rights deal is basically like, Channel 7 pays the AFL like $1 billion to get the exclusive rights to show AFL games. generally with esports, that's not the case. Like Twitch isn't like some Twitch deals, there may be some YouTube deals or like Mixer or whatever.
Yeah.
Facebook gaming, but like generally they don't really exist.
Yeah.
And if they do, they're not of like a huge scale. So that's one part. I think the other part is acknowledgement from publishers. So I feel like publishers have been making money hand over fist, more or less, the last how many years.
Yeah.
Especially the big ones. Like, of course, there are indie studios who come in and out, but when you think about those big esport players, all those publishers have been making an incredible amount of money. They would claim that they lose money on esports. I think if you look at purely from like an OPEX, like if you look at like the money they spend on the events themselves, maybe that's true if you look at it like in a small snapshot. But certainly I would be very interested in seeing what happens to skin sales when the most famous players equip whatever skin in whatever game.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that they spike. I have no doubt that they make a shit ton of money through that. But currently very, very little of that flows directly through to teams. There's no well, some games there is, but generally there's very few revenue share agreements. And most of them relate only to digital assets. And we're getting a bit of the weeds here, but most of those rev share agreements only apply to digital assets, which include your branding, right? So like you need to have legacy branding in this skin for us to pay you. But like obviously legacy is not that popular, but like, you know, if a legacy player uses just some random skin and then all of their fans go out and buy that skin and they make $5 million the day after, you know, okay, surely it's safe to assume that some percentage of that was because of them participating in this esports tournament and equipping that skin, At the moment, like teams usually in most games see not a single cent, and we have really very little insight into like what is being made or like how that all works. And I feel like in the future, and it may never happen, but I feel like that's a really key revenue stream for esports teams in the future. If they ever figure out how that will all work with publishers, I feel like it doesn't take that much money to support an esports ecosystem that's really healthy, that puts on a good product for the fans. But so far, they've been unwilling to do that. You know, you read stories on Reddit of like some player who's, you know, can't get paid the last $5,000 of his contract or whatever. Meanwhile, he's playing a game owned by a company who's making billions of dollars a year. Like they can't, you know, we can't find $5,000 for this kid who's like 17,
who
dropped
has
out
to
of school
go to Twitter to
like,
make sure he gets paid.
you know what I mean? Like, and it's not that, you know, obviously it's like where you draw the line. It's not like every person who's lost a little bit of money needs to be like subsidized. I just think that like there's a lot of money in this thing, and very little of it is ending up with the people who have made it popular. Esports purely. Obviously, publishers make the game, blah, blah, blah. They deserve all the money for making the game, whatever. So I haven't solved your problem. I've just kind of talked about more problems. It's great to get your insight. But those are sort of my thoughts. I think there's a lot of different ways you could tackle it. Basically, it just needs to grow. You need more fans, you need people playing games, you need the people who are playing games to enjoy esports and then choose to watch the ones that you're involved with, and then you sell partners against that. That's sort of the model at the moment.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. I've wanted you on since I even had the idea of Grief, so thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. And you, thank you so much for tuning to episode 3. I hope you'll join us for episode 4 whenever that happens, and thank you very much.
How did you get so old?
At what point did you decide to
When
get
did you
old?
know you were old?
So there was
How
a point in
old
your
were you
life when you were probably like, I'm old. How old were you?
When did you realise when you were old?
How old were you when you were old?
So I was old at 22. I just started playing League and everyone else was younger than me. It was
Everyone
really
was so young.
crazy.